What if I told you the past isn't as distant as we think? That hidden in the ruins of ancient civilizations are clues, uncanny echoes of our modern world. From towering skyscrapers to sprawling metropolises, the footprints of our ancestors reveal a startling truth. Human ingenuity has always followed the same blueprint, no matter the era. Picture this: a bustling city from 2,000 years ago, complete with apartment complexes, shopping districts, and even traffic jams. Sound familiar? It's as if time folded in on itself, leaving behind eerie parallels that blur the line between ancient and modern. Today, we're embarking on a journey to uncover 30 of these astonishing sites, places where the past doesn't just whisper to us, it shouts. Imagine walking through an ancient marketplace where vendors once haggled over goods, mirroring the vibrancy of today's bazaars, or standing before a monumental structure that rivals our modern engineering marvels, built without the technology we take for granted. These aren't just ruins, they're time capsules, revealing how societies separated by millennia shared the same ambitions, struggles, and triumphs. But here's the twist: some of these parallels go beyond mere coincidence. They hint at lost knowledge, forgotten innovations, or even cosmic connections that defy explanation. Why do cultures across continents with no possible contact design nearly identical structures? How did ancient architects achieve precision that challenges modern tools? As we peel back the layers of history together, you'll start to see the world and our place in it in a whole new light. So, if you're ready to unravel mysteries that bridge centuries, let's dive into these 30 ancient sites where history doesn't just repeat itself, it winks at us from the shadows. Buried beneath the hills of southeastern Turkey lies a mystery that rewrites history: Göbekli Tepe. This sprawling temple complex, carved from stone over 12,000 years ago, predates agriculture, pottery, even permanent settlements. Yet its towering pillars, some weighing more than 10 tons, stand in precise circles adorned with intricate carvings of animals and symbols. How did hunter-gatherers without wheels or metal tools achieve such precision? It's as if Stone Age hands were guided by a vision far beyond their time. Fast forward to today, and you'll find something just as striking: a global revival of megalithic architecture. From minimalist stone gardens in luxury resorts to avant-garde public spaces mimicking ancient alignments, modern designers are drawn to the same raw, monumental power that inspired Göbekli Tepe. Think of Iceland's Arctic Henge, a contemporary monument echoing prehistoric solar observatories, or the granite monoliths in corporate plazas that evoke primal awe. Even our wellness retreats, with their stone labyrinths and solstice ceremonies, seem to channel the same longing for connection that drove our ancestors to build sacred spaces. But the parallels go deeper than aesthetics. Göbekli Tepe's builders mastered engineering feats that still baffle experts, leveling bedrock, transporting massive stones across miles, and aligning structures with celestial events. Modern laser scans reveal cuts so precise they rival today's diamond-tipped tools. Could this site prove that complex societies existed long before we assumed? Some researchers argue it wasn't agriculture that birthed civilization, but ritual, that humanity first came together not for bread but for belief. Now imagine standing among those pillars at dawn, the same way visitors do today at New Age gatherings or silent meditation retreats. The stones whisper a question: are we rediscovering something our ancestors knew all along? That some truths about community, wonder, and our place in the cosmos are carved not just into rock but into time itself. Rising from the sands of Egypt, the Great Pyramid of Giza has stood as a silent sentinel for over 4,500 years, a monument so precise, so deliberately aligned with the stars, that it feels less like a tomb and more like a message carved in stone for the ages. Built as the ultimate symbol of pharaonic power, its sheer scale was designed to awe, to dominate the horizon, much like today's glass and steel skyscrapers pierce the clouds in a declaration of corporate might. Think of the Burj Khalifa, its sleek facade reflecting the sun just as the pyramid's limestone casing once did, both structures serving as towering billboards proclaiming, "Here stands greatness." But the parallels go beyond mere dominance. The pyramid's sides align almost perfectly with the cardinal directions north, south, east, west, with an error margin smaller than a fraction of a degree. Modern architects would need satellite technology to replicate such precision, yet the builders of Giza achieved it using nothing but shadows, ropes, and an intimate knowledge of the heavens. Fast forward to the 21st century, and you'll find buildings like the Shanghai Tower, its spiral design mirroring the celestial dance of planets, or Dubai's Cayenne Tower, twisting like a helix to echo cosmic forces. Even the orientation of Manhattan's grid, carefully planned to capture sunlight, repeats this ancient obsession with harmonizing human ambition and the cosmos. Here's where it gets eerie. The pyramid's chambers align with specific stars, Orion's belt, Sirius suggesting a celestial roadmap for the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife. Today, corporate headquarters embed similar symbolism. Apple Park's circular design evokes infinite cycles, while the Salesforce Tower in San Francisco uses lighting to mimic constellations during solstices. It's as if the same primal impulse to touch the divine through architecture has never left us. So why do we keep rebuilding the same dreams in different materials? Perhaps because these structures aren't just about function, they're about belief. Whether it's a pharaoh's pyramid or a billionaire's skyscraper, the message is timeless. Reach higher, defy limits, and etch your legacy into the sky. The tools change, but the human hand and the hunger behind it remains the same. Perched high in the Andes, wrapped in mist and mystery, Machu Picchu feels like a city suspended between earth and sky. This 15th century Incan citadel wasn't just a royal retreat, it was a masterpiece of sustainable design, a self-sufficient community thriving where modern engineers would struggle to lay a foundation. Its terraced fields cling to mountainsides like stairways to heaven, each level a testament to an ancient understanding of balance between human need and nature's limits. Today, as climate change reshapes our world, we're turning back to these very principles, rediscovering what the Inca knew centuries ago. That survival isn't about conquering land, but collaborating with it. Look at the terraces, more than just picturesque steps, they were a revolutionary agricultural system. By carving flat plots into steep slopes, the Inca prevented erosion, retained water, and created microclimates to grow everything from maize to medicinal herbs. Fast forward to 21st century Tokyo or Singapore, where glass towers now host vertical farms stacked with hydroponic greens, mimicking those same space-saving, resource-efficient ideals. Startups like Aero Farms and Plenty use LED lights instead of sunlight, but the goal mirrors Machu Picchu's, feed many with little. Even rooftop gardens in Brooklyn or Berlin echo the Inca's ingenuity, proving that urban spaces can produce food without sprawling into forests. Yet Machu Picchu's isolation, hidden for centuries until its rediscovery in 1911, holds another lesson. Modern ecotourism hubs, from Bhutan's carbon-neutral retreats to the Faroe Islands, closed for maintenance preservation campaigns, emulate this delicate dance between access and protection. Like the Inca, who built without disturbing the mountain's spine, today's designers craft lodges with reclaimed wood and solar panels, camouflaged into landscapes rather than dominating them. The UN even certified Machu Picchu as the world's first carbon-neutral wonder, a title now chased by destinations from Costa Rica's rainforest hideaways to Norway's fjord-side resorts. But here's the twist: the Inca didn't just adapt to their environment, they revered it. Temples aligned with solstices, stones shaped to fit natural contours, and sacred peaks woven into city layouts reveal a world view where nature wasn't a resource but a partner. Compare that to biophilic design, today's architectural movement filling offices and homes with living walls, natural light, and flowing spaces that blur indoor and outdoor lines. Apple's leafy headquarters or Milan's Bosco verticale towers aren't just aesthetic choices, they're unconscious revivals of an Incan ethos. So why does this lost city speak so urgently to our era? Perhaps because Machu Picchu stands as both warning and inspiration. A warning showing how civilizations crumble when they exhaust their land, and an inspiration proving that harmony with nature isn't just possible but profound. As helicopters now buzz over its stones and Instagrammers crowd its vistas, the real challenge isn't preserving ruins but reviving the wisdom they embody. The terraces whisper, sustainability isn't a trend, it's the only way forward. Stonehenge stands as a silent circle of giants on the English plain, its massive stones arranged with such deliberate alignment that they catch the first rays of the summer solstice sunrise, a celestial clock carved in rock over 5,000 years ago. This wasn't just a monument, it was a pilgrimage site, a place where Neolithic people gathered to mark the turning of the seasons, to celebrate, to mourn, and to connect with forces greater than themselves. Fast forward to the 21st century, and you'll find the same human impulse alive and thriving in places like Nevada's Black Rock Desert, where tens of thousands gather annually for Burning Man, a modern solstice in its own right. A temporary city built around ritual, art, and communal experience under the vast desert sky. The parallels are uncanny. Both Stonehenge and Burning Man serve as magnetic points for those seeking meaning beyond the everyday. The ancients traveled for days, even weeks, to reach Stonehenge's sacred alignments, just as modern pilgrims endure traffic jams and dust storms to reach Black Rock City. Both events transform barren landscapes into thriving hubs of creativity and connection. Stonehenge with its processions and offerings, Burning Man with its towering sculptures and fiery effigies. And at the heart of both lies a shared obsession with the sun. Stonehenge's heel stone framing the solstice sunrise, Burning Man's climax marked by the burning of a giant wooden man as the crowd erupts in collective catharsis. But here's where the comparison deepens. Stonehenge wasn't just a calendar, it was a social glue, a place where scattered tribes could reaffirm shared beliefs through shared experience. Today's festivals, from Glastonbury to Coachella, serve a similar function, spaces where strangers become temporary communities, bound by music, art, and the thrill of participation. Even the act of building echoes across millennia. Stonehenge's bluestones were hauled from Wales, a feat of coordination and labor, just as Burning Man's installations rely on volunteers collaborating to raise ephemeral marvels in the harshest conditions. Yet there's a poignant contrast. Where Stonehenge's builders left enduring stones to speak across ages, Burning Man's ethos demands that nothing remain. Every structure is dismantled, every trace erased. One was meant to outlast memory, the other to live only in memory. Perhaps that's the most telling parallel of all. Both reveal humanity's timeless need to carve meaning from the fleeting, whether through monuments that defy time or moments that defy oblivion. As the sun rises over Stonehenge each June, and as the man burns each August, the same truth flickers. We still gather, still gaze skyward, still seek answers in fire and light. The tools have changed, but the yearning remains. Hidden in the rose-red cliffs of Jordan, Petra's temples and tombs aren't just carved into rock, they're an ancient love letter to the power of illusion. 2,000 years ago, the Nabateans transformed sheer canyon walls into elaborate facades, their intricate columns and pediments appearing Chinese letter entire mountains. It's a trick of perception that modern architects still chase. Take the Sydney Opera House, its soaring white shells seeming to float above the harbor, or Dubai's Burj Al Arab, its sail-like silhouette creating the illusion of movement against the skyline. Both ancient and modern, these structures prove that great design isn't just about function, it's about wonder, but Petra's genius goes beyond its breathtaking facades. Behind those ornate carvings lies a hidden network of channels, cisterns, and pipes so advanced it rivaled Roman aqueducts. The Nabateans didn't just carve beauty, they engineered survival, funneling scarce desert rainfall through a labyrinth of tunnels to sustain a city of 30,000. Fast forward to today, and you'll find the same principles in cities like Singapore, where skyscrapers harvest rainwater through vertical gardens, or in Tokyo's underground floodwater cathedrals, colossal chambers built to tame torrential rain. Even Las Vegas, a modern desert mirage, mirrors Petra's paradox, its fountains and resorts fed by invisible systems pulling water from distant sources. What's remarkable isn't just the similarity of solutions, but the shared audacity behind them. Petra's treasury, with its Hellenistic columns painstakingly chiseled from living rock, required the same obsessive precision as Zaha Hadid's Haydar Aliyev Center, where curves seemed to defy gravity. Both eras chose the hardest path not because it was practical, but because it was poetic. The Nabateans could have built freestanding structures, just as modern architects could rely on bland boxes. Instead, both gambled on grandeur, proving that even in engineering, humanity's highest impulse has always been to marry the useful with the unforgettable. Yet there's a quiet lesson in Petra's ruins. For all its sophistication, the city fell when trade routes shifted and the water ran dry, a warning etched in sandstone. Today's smart cities buzz with sensors and AI, but their fate, like Petra's, hinges on one timeless question: can artistry outlast the resources that fuel it? As tourists carve new paths through those ancient canyons, the facades whisper back, durability isn't just in the stone, but in the balance. The roar of 50,000 voices shakes the ground, not in some modern superdome, but in the heart of ancient Rome, where the Colosseum's archways once funneled waves of deafening cheers. Step inside this 2,000-year-old marvel, and you'll realize it's not so different from the stadiums we pack today. The same hunger for spectacle, the same rituals of victory and defeat, even the same segregated seating where elites watched from cushioned boxes while commoners jostled on steep bleachers above. The Colosseum wasn't just an arena, it was a mirror held up to society, reflecting who mattered and who didn't, through architecture alone, take crowd control. The Colosseum's 76 numbered entrances and tiered corridors allowed 60,000 spectators to flood in and out in minutes, a feat modern venues like SoFi Stadium or London's Wembley achieve with digital tickets and color-coded zones. The ancient Romans even had their own version of concession stands, hawkers peddling snacks and souvenirs to the masses, just as vendors today weave through rows with overpriced beers and foam fingers. And beneath both eras' arenas, a labyrinth of tunnels. For the Romans, it housed gladiators and caged beasts that erupted onto the sand via trapdoors. Today's stadiums hide locker rooms, media crews, and high-tech lighting rigs, but the principle is identical. The show demands a hidden world to fuel the magic. Yet the most striking parallel lies in the VIP experience. Emperor Titus's marble-clad box, positioned for optimal views of the blood-soaked sand, finds its echo in today's skyboxes, glass-fronted perches where CEOs and celebrities sip champagne far above the sweat and struggle below. Ancient inscriptions reveal wealthy patrons secured prime seats just as corporations now lease luxury suites for millions. The message: status shapes sightlines, whether you're watching a lion hunt or a touchdown pass. But here's the twist: these spectacles weren't just entertainment, they were social glue. Gladiatorial games reinforced Roman values, courage, discipline, the supremacy of empire, much as halftime shows and national anthems weave modern myths of unity and pride. When the crowd roared as a defeated gladiator awaited the emperor's thumb, their collective voice held power, just as a stadium's chant can sway a referee's call today. The Colosseum's violence appalls us now, but its underlying truth remains. Mass gatherings don't just reflect society, they shape it. Perhaps that's why we keep rebuilding the same spaces. From the retractable roofs of Atlanta's Mercedes-Benz Stadium to the Colosseum's long-lost velarium awning, the goal is unchanged. Control the elements, focus the crowd's energy, and stage a shared story. The gladiators are gone, replaced by athletes hailed as modern warriors, but the hunger to witness struggle, to belong to something vast that's written not just in stone but in our bones. Angkor Wat rises from the Cambodian jungle like a dream carved in stone, a temple so vast it could swallow entire cathedrals whole. Built in the 12th century as a Hindu sanctuary later consecrated to Buddhism, its 5 iconic towers stretch toward the heavens, mirrored perfectly in surrounding moats that double as liquid mandalas. But what's truly staggering isn't just its scale, it's how this ancient complex foreshadowed modern urban design. The temple's layout, a series of concentric galleries and courtyards radiating outward, mirrors today's smart city blueprints where green belts and water features buffer bustling hubs. Think of New York's Central Park or Singapore's Gardens by the Bay, oases woven into urban grids, just as Angkor's moats and reservoirs cooled its stone heart 900 years ago. Nowhere is Angkor's legacy more vivid than in its modern replicas. From Texas to Tennessee, Hindu temples echo its spires, adapting ancient geometry to suburban skylines. The Baps Sri Swaminarayan Mandir in Atlanta, for instance, hand-carved its pink sandstone and white marble in India before assembling them like a divine jigsaw puzzle in America, a 21st century homage to Angkor's craft. Even the temple's moat finds echoes in reflective pools at corporate campuses like Apple Park, where water serves as both mirror and mediator between steel and sky. But Angkor's true innovation was hydraulic. Its reservoirs and canals formed a medieval metropolis rivaling modern megacities, a network so advanced it supported 1 million people in an era when London housed 50,000. Today's flood-prone cities are relearning these lessons. Bangkok's Monkey Cheeks water retention parks and Amsterdam's floating neighborhoods owe a silent debt to Khmer engineers. The temple's genius wasn't just spiritual, it was systemic, blending faith with infrastructure in a dance we're only now rediscovering. Yet there's a twist. Angkor's collapse, exhausted by deforestation and fractured by climate shifts, hangs over its replicas like a shadow. As neon-lit facades in Las Vegas or Hyderabad borrow its silhouette for casinos and resorts, the original stands as a warning. Grandeur without balance is a fleeting mirage. Perhaps that's why pilgrims still trek to its crumbling corridors, not just to worship gods, but to touch the fragile line between human ambition and the earth's patience. The towers whisper, build, but build wisely. Teotihuacan sprawls across the Mexican highlands like a forgotten blueprint, its arrow-straight avenue of the dead cutting through the ruins with geometric precision, flanked by the looming pyramid of the sun and moon. This wasn't just a city, it was a manifesto in stone, built 1,000 years before the Aztecs claimed it. Its grid so exact it rivals Manhattan's rigid blocks. Every alley, every plaza was plotted with a surveyor's obsession, aligning not just with cardinal directions but with celestial events. Modern architects still puzzle over how its builders, without compasses or aerial views, achieved such flawless symmetry. Step into Midtown Manhattan today, and you'll walk the same logic streets numbered like coordinates, towers rising on strict plots, everything subordinated to the grid's ruthless order. Both cities whisper a shared truth. Urban planning isn't just about efficiency, it's about power. Teotihuacan's rulers used geometry to enforce control, funneling crowds along ceremonial axes toward its pyramids, just as Wall Street's canyon-like streets direct flows of capital toward skyscrapers like one world trade. The Pyramid of the Sun, towering over its surroundings, functioned much like the Empire State Building, a symbolic peak reminding everyone of the hierarchy etched into the city's bones. Yet there's a deeper kinship. Teotihuacan's architects embedded sacred ratios into their design, proportions echoing cosmic harmonies. Modern landmarks do the same. The Burj Khalifa's stepped silhouette mirrors the Pyramid of the Sun's Tears, while Shanghai's Oriental Pearl Tower repeats the ancient play of spheres and shafts. Even the materials whisper across time. Teotihuacan's pyramids clad in glittering mica, a mineral that still lines spaceship insulation today. But here's the twist. Teotihuacan's grid outlasted its builders by centuries, just as New York's will likely outlive ours. Both cities were designed for gods, yet inhabited by mortals, monuments to ambition so vast they transcend the hands that shaped them. As sunset gilds the Pyramid of the Sun, casting long shadows down the Avenue of the Dead, it's hard not to wonder, when future civilizations dig up our grids, what will they say about the dreams we carved into concrete? Perched atop Athens' Acropolis, the Parthenon stands as a white marble manifesto, a temple so perfectly proportioned it's been called frozen music. Built in the 5th century BCE to honor Athena, its Doric columns aren't just structural, they're a visual language of order and democracy, one that would echo across millennia. Fast forward to the late 18th century, when architects like Thomas Ustick Walter gazed at sketches of those same columns and saw something revolutionary, the perfect symbol for a fledgling nation called the United States. The result, the U.S. Capitol's stately facade, its fluted pillars mirroring the Parthenon's as if to whisper, "We too stand for reason, for republics, for ideals carved in stone." But the Parthenon's influence didn't stop in Washington. From London's British Museum to the Parisian Pantheon, neoclassical architects plundered its design playbook, turning temples into banks, museums, even train stations. Why? Because those columns carried baggage, centuries of associations with enlightenment, civic virtue, and the ghost of Periclean Athens. Modern governments craved that borrowed gravitas. Walk into any courthouse or capitol today, and you're stepping into a silent agreement. Marble equals legitimacy. Yet the Parthenon's legacy isn't just about facades. Like the Louvre or the Smithsonian, it was designed as a treasure chest for cultural identity, its friezes depicting Athenian myths, its cella housing offerings to the gods. Today, museums still perform that same alchemy, turning artifacts into national narratives. The Elgin marbles, controversially housed in London, sparked debates about ownership as heated as any over modern repatriation claims. The building itself became a metaphor. When Nashville built a full-scale replica in 1897, it wasn't just copying architecture, it was claiming a lineage tying Tennessee to the Athenian Golden Age. Here's the twist: the Parthenon wasn't always the austere monument we imagine. Originally, it blazed with color: crimson, azure, gold, its statues dressed in metallic garments that caught the Mediterranean sun. Modern restorers, scrubbing centuries of grime from marble, stumbled onto traces of pigment, revealing a truth as jarring as learning the White House was once neon pink. Our reverence for pure classical architecture is a Renaissance fiction, a sanitized version of history. Even the cracks tell stories, earthquake damage repaired with titanium rods, just as modern conservators use 3D printing to fill gaps in looted artifacts. So why does this ancient ruin still dictate how we build our halls of power? Perhaps because stone outlasts speeches. When a senator leans against a Parthenon-inspired pillar, they're not just standing in a building, they're standing in an idea. And as tourists file past the Acropolis, smartphones outstretched like modern votives, the marble whispers back, symbols are brittle, but the hunger for what they represent, that's unbreakable. At Chichen Itza, the towering steps of El Castillo Pyramid aren't just stairs, they're a celestial calendar carved in stone. Every equinox, shadows slither down the northern staircase like a serpent awakening, a spectacle engineered by Mayan astronomers who tracked Venus with jaw-dropping precision. These weren't stargazers, they were cosmic architects aligning entire cities with planetary cycles centuries before telescopes existed. Fast forward to the present, and you'll find the same relentless curiosity pulsing through the mirrors of the Hubble Space Telescope or the laser arrays of the Very Large Array in New Mexico. The tools have changed, but the question remains, what secrets do the stars hold? The Mayans didn't just observe Venus, they worshipped it, timing wars and coronations to its appearances. Their observatories, like El Caracol with its narrow slit windows framing Venus's path, functioned like ancient mission control centers. Today's astronomers might swap stone apertures for radio dishes, but the goal is startlingly similar. Consider the James Webb Space Telescope. Its infrared eyes peer into cosmic nurseries where stars are born, echoing how Mayan priests scanned the heavens for omens of earthly events. Even the language we use, celestial events, cosmic cycles, betrays our shared obsession with linking sky and soil. What's revelatory isn't just the accuracy of Mayan astronomy, but their integration of science and spirituality. The Dresden Codex, a bark paper manuscript filled with Venus tables, doubles as both almanac and sacred text. Modern observatories might cloak their work in secular terms, yet the awe persists. When Hubble captures a galaxy swirling like a pinwheel, or when scientists hunt for exoplanets in the Goldilocks zone, they're chasing the same existential itch: are we alone? Does the universe whisper back? The Mayans answered with sacrifice and ceremony. We send probes and photons, but here's the twist. Chichen Itza's zenith tube, a vertical shaft in El Caracol that pinpointed stars overhead, relied on naked eye precision. Today's astronomers drown in data from AI-processed sky surveys, yet both eras share a bottleneck: human interpretation. The Mayans saw warriors and gods in constellations. We project black hole theories onto equations. Perhaps that's why space agencies still build observatories in deserts and mountains, far from city lights, because some truths, ancient or modern, demand you stand under an open sky and simply look up. The real parallel: both civilizations gambled vast resources on cosmic curiosity. The Mayans diverted labor from crops to pyramids. NASA spends billions probing Martian dust. Different currencies, same wager. That understanding the heavens justifies the cost. As dusk falls on El Castillo, casting serpent shadows one more time, the stones seem to ask, who's to say which approach, the chant or the algorithm, gets closer to the sky's secrets? The Library of Alexandria wasn't just a building. It was a revolution. Imagine a place where every scroll from Babylon to Greece, every treatise on medicine, astronomy, and philosophy was gathered under one roof, translated, copied, and made available to scholars who traveled across continents to drink from its well of knowledge. It was the Google of antiquity, a beacon of enlightenment where the boundaries of human understanding were pushed further than ever before. Now fast forward to today's digital age, where Wikipedia's servers hum with over 50 million articles in 300 languages, freely accessible to anyone with an internet connection. The parallels are uncanny. Both Alexandria and Wikipedia were born from the same audacious dream to collect all the world's knowledge and share it without barriers. But the similarities run deeper than sheer scale. Just as the Library of Alexandria employed an army of scribes to transcribe and translate texts, Wikipedia relies on millions of volunteer editors who refine, fact-check, and expand entries in real time. The ancient librarians curated knowledge with meticulous care, rejecting flawed manuscripts much like Wikipedia's moderators flag inaccuracies or biased edits. Even the funding models echo across millennia. The Ptolemies bankrolled Alexandria's collections with royal wealth, while today's Wikimedia Foundation survives on donations, proving that preserving knowledge has always required patronage, whether from kings or ordinary users clicking donate. Yet there's a crucial difference. Alexandria's knowledge was guarded, accessible only to the elite few who could journey to its halls. Wikipedia demolished those gates, putting the power of information in the hands of a farmer in Kenya or a student in Peru. The library's tragic burnings, whether by Caesar's troops or later conflicts, highlighted the fragility of centralized knowledge. Modern digital archives, decentralized and endlessly replicated across servers, are designed to survive disasters that would have erased an ancient library in an afternoon. Still, both systems share the same vulnerability, the human factor. Alexandria's librarians debated which texts deserved preservation, just as Wikipedia's editors wrestle with systemic biases whose stories get told and whose voices are amplified or erased. The library's collections skewed toward Greek and Egyptian thought, marginalizing other perspectives, a tension mirrored today in Wikipedia's struggle to balance coverage across languages and cultures. Knowledge, it seems, is never neutral, whether carved on papyrus or coded in HTML. Perhaps the most poignant parallel is the idealism behind both projects. The Library of Alexandria was more than a repository. It was a statement that knowledge could transcend empires and outlast wars. Wikipedia, for all its flaws, clings to that same hope, that a crowd-sourced, ad-free encyclopedia can resist the commercialization of information. As you scroll through Wikipedia tonight, remember, you're walking the same path as the scholars who once paced Alexandria's halls, searching for truth in a world that often fears it. The medium has changed, but the mission light against darkness remains. Buried beneath the earth for more than 2,000 years, the Terracotta Army stands as a testament to one of history's most staggering feats of mass production. Emperor Qin Shi Huang didn't just commission a few sculptures to guard his tomb, he ordered an entire regiment, over 8,000 life-sized soldiers, each with distinct facial features, armor styles, and even hairstyles reflecting their rank and origins. This wasn't artisanal craftsmanship. This was assembly line efficiency on a scale that wouldn't be rivaled until the Industrial Revolution. Workshops near the tomb site functioned like ancient factories, with specialized teams molding legs, torsos, and heads separately before assembling them like modular kits. Sound familiar? It's the same principle behind today's automobile plants, where chassis, engines, and interiors are fabricated in different departments before final assembly. What's even more striking is how the Terracotta Army foreshadowed modern collectibles. Each soldier was stamped with the seal of its workshop, a quality control measure echoing the serial numbers on limited edition sneakers or artisan pottery today. The Emperor's obsession with uniformity and variety mirrors the frenzy around Funko Pop, figures or Warhammer miniatures, where slight variations in poses or accessories drive collectors into a frenzy. Even the army's purpose, a symbolic display of power meant to intimidate and awe, finds its parallel in military memorials like the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier or the statues at Normandy, where rows of identical markers amplify the weight of collective sacrifice. Yet there's a twist. While modern factories rely on machines for precision, the Terracotta Army's individuality was achieved through human hands. Archaeologists have identified at least 10 distinct face molds, customized with unique clay additions to avoid repetition. This blend of standardization and personalization is something today's manufacturers still strive for. Think of Nike's mass-produced sneakers with customizable colorways, or 3D printed prosthetics tailored to individual bodies. The ancients grasped a truth we're still unpacking. True scale doesn't require sacrificing identity. The most haunting parallel, though, lies in the army's invisibility. For centuries, the soldiers waited underground, unseen by the living, much like today's warehouses stocked with goods destined for future consumers. Qin's army was meant for eternity, a permanent garrison in the afterlife. In a way, our Amazon fulfillment centers, packed with products awaiting purchase, are secular echoes of the same impulse, preparing for a future demand that may never come. As drones replace clay and algorithms oversee assembly lines, the Terracotta Army whispers a question. When we scale production to unimaginable heights, what are we really building for? The soldier's silent vigil suggests an answer, not just for the present, but for whatever lies beyond. Stretching across the arid plains of southern Peru, the Nazca Lines are more than mere scratches on the desert floor. They're a colossal canvas, a gallery of geoglyphs so vast they can only be fully appreciated from the sky. Etched between 500 BC and 500 CE, these enigmatic figures range from geometric spirals to intricate depictions of hummingbirds, monkeys, and even a humanoid figure nicknamed the astronaut. Their sheer scale defies logic. Some stretch over 600 feet, their clean, unbroken lines carved into the iron-rich earth with almost surgical precision. Fast forward to today, and you'll find the same instinct to transform landscapes into messages in places like California's Hollywood sign, its giant white letters clinging to the hills as a beacon of pop culture, or the sprawling crop circles that mysteriously appear in English fields, their patterns echoing the Nazca's cryptic designs. What unites these creations across millennia isn't just their size, it's their mystery. The Nazca Lines' purpose remains hotly debated. Were they celestial maps, ritual pathways, or perhaps offerings to gods who viewed them from above? Modern land artists like Robert Smithson, who carved his spiral jetty into Utah's Great Salt Lake, or crop circle creators, whether human pranksters or, as some insist, extraterrestrial visitors play with the same ambiguity. They invite interpretation, leaving clues but no definitive answers. The Hollywood sign, originally a real estate ad, has morphed into a symbol of dreams and illusion, proving that meaning evolves long after the creators vanish. Yet the parallels run deeper than symbolism. Just as the Nazca people scraped away the desert's dark upper layer to reveal lighter soil beneath, modern geoglyphs rely on contrast: chalk on green fields, white paint on brown hills. Both are ephemeral in their own way. The Nazca Lines survive only because of the region's rainless climate, while crop circles vanish at harvest and the Hollywood sign requires constant repainting. There's a shared fragility here, an acknowledgement that these grand gestures are fleeting without human care. But here's the twist: the Nazca Lines were likely made without their creators ever seeing the full picture. No hot air balloons, no drones, just painstaking measurements and faith in the unseen. Today's land artists wield satellites and drones to perfect their work, yet the effect is the same: awe at humanity's ability to shape the earth into something transcendent. Whether it's a 2,000-year-old hummingbird or a freshly mowed field pattern, the message is clear. We've always sought to make our mark, to say, we were here, in ways that outlast us. The desert whispers back, but for how long? Legend whispers of a paradise suspended in the air, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, a lush oasis tiered like a wedding cake above the desert sands. Though archaeologists still debate its exact location, the image of those verdant terraces defying harsh terrain has haunted humanity's imagination for millennia. Today, that same defiance takes root on the rooftops of our concrete jungles, where urban farmers are turning barren tar beaches into edible landscapes. From Singapore's sky-high vegetable plots to Brooklyn's buzzing apiaries atop grocery stores, the spirit of Babylon lives on, not as myth but as a modern survival strategy. Consider Singapore, our island nation where every square inch is precious. Here, vertical farms like Sky Greens stack leafy greens in rotating aluminum towers, mimicking Babylon's tiered gardens with hydroponic precision. Rooftops at Capita Spring burst with 400 species of plants, a living tapestry that cools the building beneath it, just as the gardens once shielded Babylon's palace from the Mesopotamian sun. Even the numbers tell the same story. Ancient texts describe the gardens requiring 22,000 liters of water daily, lifted by screw pumps, a feat mirrored today by Dubai's The Green Planet, an artificial rainforest housed in a glass biome where misters and pumps maintain 80% humidity in the middle of the desert. But the connection goes deeper than aesthetics. Babylon's gardens were rumored to be a royal gift, a king soothing his homesick bride with the fragrant herbs of her homeland. Modern rooftop gardens fulfill a similar emotional need, offering urban dwellers pockets of tranquility amidst steel and glass. The High Line in New York, a defunct rail line turned elevated garden, draws millions seeking refuge from the city's frenzy. Tokyo's Pasona O2 buries office workers in rice paddies and orange trees, proving that even in the most sterile environments, humans crave the whisper of leaves. What's revolutionary is how these spaces blend ancient wisdom with cutting-edge tech. Babylon's gardeners likely used clay pots and capillary action to conserve water, techniques echoed in today's self-watering planters and hydroponic grids. Singapore's Project Blue Greens goes further, integrating rooftop wetlands that filter stormwater while providing habitat for endangered dragonflies. It's a loop older than history, nature engineered to serve humanity, then engineered to heal itself. Yet there's a quiet irony in this revival. The hanging gardens, if they existed, were a display of power, proof that kings could bend ecology to their will. Today's rooftop farms, though equally audacious, speak of humility. They're not monuments to rulers, but lifelines for a warming planet. As climate change parches cities, these green havens reduce heat islands, absorb carbon, and feed communities without sprawling into farmland. The gardens of Babylon may have been a mirage, but their descendants are now anything but. From a distance, the steel frames and solar panels of modern rooftop farms might look alien to Nebuchadnezzar's architects, yet the dream remains unchanged to make the impossible bloom. On the windswept slopes of Easter Island, the Moai stand as silent sentinels, massive stone figures carved from volcanic rock, their hollow eyes gazing across centuries. These towering statues, some weighing over 80 tons, weren't just art. They were a communal project so vast it required entire villages working in unison. Picture clans quarrying rock, carving features with basalt tools, then hauling these giants miles across rugged terrain using nothing but ropes and logs. It's a feat of coordination rivaling the construction of modern skyscrapers, yet driven not by profit but by something deeper, the need to honor ancestors and proclaim collective identity. Fast forward to the 20th century, and you'll find the same impulse carved into the granite face of Mount Rushmore, 4 presidents immortalized in stone, a monument to national unity forged during the Great Depression. Both projects share an audacious scale, but the parallels run deeper than size. The Moai were more than memorials, they were conduits of mana, spiritual energy believed to protect the living. Similarly, Rushmore's presidents were chosen as symbols: Washington for revolution, Jefferson for expansion, Lincoln for preservation, Roosevelt for progress, each face a guardian of American ideals. Even their placements echo each other. The Moai erected on ceremonial platforms called ahu, facing inland to watch over villages, while Rushmore's figures gaze across the Black Hills, a silent reminder of manifest destiny. The materials differ: compressed volcanic ash versus South Dakota granite, but the message is identical: carve your values into the land and they'll outlast you. Yet the contrasts reveal just as much. The Moai were created by a Polynesian society with no written language, their meanings passed down orally. Rushmore, by contrast, is a product of industrialized America, its construction documented in photographs and blueprints. The Moai's creators used stone chisels, Rushmore's sculptors wielded dynamite and jackhammers. One culture saw the sacred in the rock itself, the other saw a canvas for human triumph. And where the Moai's creation was a communal rite, Rushmore's labor was outsourced, a team of 400 workers, many immigrants, paid wages to realize one man's vision. Here's the twist: both sites now grapple with their legacies. Easter Island's ecosystem collapsed under the strain of Moai production, a cautionary tale of resource depletion. Rushmore, carved into land sacred to the Lakota, sparks debates about colonialism and whose stories deserve stone. Modern monuments are learning from these tensions. The National Memorial for Peace and Justice in Alabama, with its haunting columns commemorating lynching victims, rejects grandeur for raw truth: stone not as celebration but as reckoning. Even Iceland's ongoing Herthi project, where citizens nominate everyday heroes for memorialization, flips the script. Instead of top-down tributes, it's democracy cast in bronze. The Moai and Rushmore remind us that monuments are never neutral. They're conversations frozen in rock about who we were, who we aspire to be, and who gets left out of the story. As restoration teams work to preserve Easter Island statues, and as activists push to contextualize Rushmore's narrative, both sites whisper the same question. When the next civilization unearths our monuments, what will they say we valued? The stone won't lie. The Silk Road wasn't just a route. It was the internet of the ancient world, a sprawling web of pathways threading through deserts and mountains, connecting empires from Rome to Han China. Caravans laden with spices, silk, and glass didn't just transport goods. They carried Buddhism to Japan, Greek art to India, and gunpowder to Europe, stitching together civilizations that barely knew each other existed. Fast forward to today, and the same forces pulse through container ships crossing the Pacific and fiber optic cables humming beneath oceans. The players have changed, silks swapped for semiconductors, camel caravans for cargo planes, but the game remains identical. Movement breeds innovation. Consider how the Silk Road birthed history's first cosmopolitan cities. Samarkand, where Persian, Indian, and Chinese merchants bartered under vaulted bazaars, thrived as a cultural blender, much like Dubai's skyscraper skyline today, where expats from 100 nations craft a globalized identity between Starbucks and gold souks. Even the road's dangers find modern echoes. Pirates plagued Silk Road caravans just as cybercriminals stalked digital trade routes, hacking into supply chains worth billions. The risks evolve, but the stakes don't. What's revelatory isn't just the scale of exchange, but its unintended consequences. Paper, invented in China, reached Baghdad via the Silk Road, transforming Arab scholarship before jumping to Europe, an ancient example of tech piracy. Today, smartphone patents spark similar legal battles across continents, proving knowledge has always resisted borders. Even diseases traveled these routes. The Black Death likely hitchhiked from Central Asia to Europe on flea-infested furs, a grim precursor to COVID-19 spread through international flight paths. Yet there's a twist. The Silk Road's golden age faded when empires turned inward, walling off trade. Sound familiar? Brexit tariffs, US-China chip wars, and reshoring factories echo that same retreat from connection. The difference: our networks are now too tangled to fully unravel. A Ming Dynasty emperor could ban maritime trade with a decree. Today, no single nation can quit globalization without collapsing its economy. The Silk Road's ghost lingers in every iPhone box labeled "Assembled in Vietnam" from parts made in 5 countries. Perhaps the deepest parallel lies in the human element. Then as now, trade was never just about goods. It was about trust. Silk Road merchants developed early letters of credit, precursors to modern banking, because carrying gold across bandit-filled passes was madness. Modern cryptocurrency, for all its high-tech gloss, solves the same problem: how to move value through untrusted spaces. And just as medieval travelers swapped tales of fantastical creatures beyond the next mountain, today's viral TikToks weave myths of distant cultures in seconds. The lesson: whether your marketplace is a dusty caravanserai or an Amazon warehouse, the rules stay the same: connect, adapt, or fade. As tariffs rise and AI reshapes labor, we're not so much inventing a new world as reliving an old one with faster camels. High on the slopes of Mount Parnassus, where the air hums with the scent of laurel and burnt offerings, the Oracle of Delphi once held court, her prophecies swaying kings, halting wars, and sealing fates. Pilgrims climbed for days, bearing gifts and trembling questions, desperate to peer through the veil of time. Fast forward to the glow of your smartphone screen at midnight, where astrology apps promise daily guidance and Instagram tarot readers offer one-click destiny. The packaging has changed. No more trance-induced babble from a priestess breathing ethylene gas, but the thirst remains identical. In chaos, we crave a compass. Delphi's priestess, the Pythia, spoke in riddles interpreted by temple scribes, her words flexible enough to fit any outcome. Modern mediums operate on the same principle, vague enough to feel personal, specific enough to seem miraculous. A psychic might say, "I see a tall, dark figure influencing your path," while the Pythia warned Croesus that attacking Persia would destroy a great empire, his own, it turned out. Both systems thrive on ambiguity, letting the seeker's hope fill in the blanks. Even the business models align. Delphi charged a consultation fee in gold or livestock, just as today's celebrity mediums charge hundreds per Zoom session. Yet there's a darker parallel. The oracle's influence wasn't just spiritual, it was political. City-states lavished gifts on Delphi to curry divine favor, much like politicians today quietly consult astrologers or wear lucky colors for debates. Nancy Reagan famously scheduled Ronald's speeches around an astrologer's advice, while in ancient Athens, no military campaign launched without Delphi's blessing. Power, it seems, never outgrows superstition. What's revealing isn't just the persistence of prophecy, but its democratization. Where Delphi reserved divine insight for the elite, TikTok psychics serve fortunes to teens between makeup tutorials. Apps like CoStar generate eerily accurate horoscopes using AI, blending algorithms with ancient zodiac systems, a digital Pythia for the swipe-right generation. Even the language echoes across millennia. The stars suggest caution in financial matters, mirrors the oracles, nothing in excess. But here's the twist. Science now unpacks why these practices feel so convincing. The Barnum effect, our brain's tendency to accept vague statements as personal truths, explains everything from psychic readings to personality quizzes. The Pythia's vapors might have been hallucinogenic gases seeping from tectonic faults. Today's seekers get dopamine hits from viral tarot pulls, different mechanisms, same magnetic pull. Ultimately, whether kneeling at a temple or refreshing a horoscope app, we're chasing the same illusion of control. The future stays stubbornly opaque, but the ritual of asking, the catharsis of feeling heard, even by the cosmos, remains timeless. As storms gather and algorithms churn, perhaps the real prophecy is this: humanity will always trade certainty for hope, no matter the cost. The tripod at Delphi may be dust, but the questions linger, whispered now into the void of a comment section. What comes next? The answer, then as now, is less about the stars and more about who's brave enough to keep asking. Deep beneath the palace of Knossos, the Minotaur's labyrinth looms in myth, a twisting prison designed to disorient and ensnare. Theseus needed a golden thread to navigate its coils, just as today's visitors clutching maps struggle through autumn corn mazes, their paths etched not in stone but in towering stalks. The connection isn't accidental. From ancient Crete to modern Wisconsin, humans have been obsessed with crafting spaces that thrill through confusion, turning architecture into a game of wits. The labyrinth at Knossos wasn't just a monster's den. It was the world's first escape room, a psychological arena where every dead end amped the stakes. Consider how contemporary maze designers channel this primal tension. The world's largest corn maze in Dixon, California, sprawls over 60 acres, its corridors shifting yearly to outsmart returning visitors. A far cry from Daedalus's static stone walls, but the same playbook of challenge and surprise. Even the motifs repeat. Where Knossos wove the Minotaur's legend into its passages, farms carve celebrity faces or UFOs into their fields, blending folklore with fresh spectacle. The tools have modernized. GPS-guided tractors replace chisels, but the goal remains unchanged: to make the familiar feel foreign, to transform a simple left or right choice into an epic quest. Escape rooms take the concept further, layering Knossos' physical puzzles with narrative glue. A Tokyo room might lock players in a cursed shrine, demanding they decipher hieroglyphs to break a pharaoh's curse, while Athens' escape venues recreate the labyrinth itself, complete with Minotaur actors growling in the shadows. Both ancient and modern versions rely on the same dopamine triggers: the rush of spotting a hidden pattern, the panic of time slipping away. the Cretan labyrinth's ultimate lesson. That the best traps aren't just physical, they're stories we willingly step into. Here's the twist: the Minotaur myth warned of consequences. Those who entered unprepared never left. Modern mazes and escape rooms, for all their fun, tap into the same cautionary vein. Corporate team building labyrinths test collaboration under pressure, while psychiatric studies use maze navigation to assess decision-making in Alzheimer's patients. The format has morphed from myth to metaphor, a way to measure human resilience when the path isn't clear. Perhaps that's why these designs endure. Whether etched in clay or clipped from corn, labyrinths speak to a universal itch: the need to prove we can outsmart the chaos, even when the only thread guiding us is our own stubborn curiosity. As glow-in-the-dark paint now marks nighttime maze routes, mirroring Theseus's golden strand, the message echoes across millennia: getting lost is easy. Finding your way out, that's where the magic happens. The Great Wall of China snakes across mountains and deserts like a dragon's backbone, a staggering 13,000 miles of stone, tamped earth, and sheer human determination. Built over 2 millennia to repel nomadic invasions, it wasn't just a barrier, it was a psychological weapon, a statement carved into the landscape: this far and no further. Fast forward to today, and the same logic underpins border walls from Texas to Tel Aviv, where steel slats and surveillance drones patrol disputed lines. Yet the parallels run deeper than mere physical divides. Just as the Great Wall crystallized Han China's identity against the barbarian North, modern barriers, whether Hungary's razor-wire fences or India's electrified border with Bangladesh, serve as stages for political theater, reinforcing narratives of us versus them. What's eerie is how construction methods mirror each other across centuries. The Great Wall's watchtowers, spaced at arrow-shot intervals, functioned like ancient surveillance cameras, relaying smoke signals to warn of approaching threats. Today's borders bristle with thermal cameras and motion sensors, but the goal is identical: see the danger before it arrives. Even the labor forces echo strangely. The wall's builders included soldiers, peasants, and prisoners, while contemporary projects often rely on migrant workers or private contractors, their toil equally invisible in official narratives. But here's where the comparison twists. The Great Wall rarely stopped determined invaders. Mongol forces breached it repeatedly, just as migrants today tunnel under walls or scale fences. Its true power lay in symbolism. For Chinese dynasties, maintaining the wall proved legitimacy. Emperors who let it crumble faced rebellions. Modern leaders play the same card, framing wall building as patriotism. When politicians pose with blueprints or concrete panels, they're channeling Qin Shi Huang's playbook: promise safety through steel and stone, yet the costs transcend budgets. The wall's construction consumed countless lives. Workers buried in its foundations became part of the mythos. Today's barriers exact different tolls: families split by borders, ecosystems severed by concrete. The Sonoran Desert's wildlife corridors, bisected by the U.S. Mexico Wall, mimic how the Great Wall disrupted migratory routes for centuries. Both eras sacrifice ecology for the illusion of control. Perhaps the most haunting parallel is the wall's unintended consequences. The Great Wall didn't just keep invaders out, it locked China in, fostering isolation that delayed technological exchange. Similarly, studies suggest border walls stunt economic ties and fuel resentment. The Ming dynasty's fixation on fortifications left it unprepared for European cannons. Could our obsession with barriers blind us to subtler threats like cyber attacks or climate migration? Still, the Great Wall endures as a paradox, both a warning and a wonder. Tourists marvel at its scale while ignoring its lessons, much like visitors to Berlin's leftover wall fragments. As drones buzz over modern barriers and ancient stones crumble into dust, the question lingers: do walls defend nations, or just the stories nations tell about themselves? The mortar's whisper is the same in every language: fear builds higher but never smarter. Pompeii didn't just die, it was preserved in mid-breath. When Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 CE, it didn't merely bury a city, it pressed pause on an entire way of life. The ash fell so quickly, so perfectly, that loaves of bread stayed intact in ovens, dogs remained curled in doorways, and fleeing figures were frozen in their final moments, their voids later filled with plaster to reveal their terrified expressions. This wasn't destruction, it was accidental time travel, a window into the ancient world so vivid it feels less like archaeology and more like stepping through a portal. Fast forward to Ground Zero in New York, where twisted steel beams and dust-preserved office memos from September 11th tell a similar story, not just of tragedy, but of how disaster, paradoxically, becomes history's most meticulous archivist. The parallels between Pompeii and modern disaster sites are chilling. Both serve as raw, unflinching records of ordinary life abruptly shattered. At Pompeii, graffiti on tavern walls boasts of love affairs and gambling debts, while the World Trade Center's recovery revealed notes passed between colleagues, half-drunk cups of coffee, and keyboards still humming with unfinished work. These aren't artifacts, they're echoes. The same forensic techniques used to study Vesuvius victims, analyzing bone fractures to determine cause of death, scanning ash layers to timestamp the eruption, were applied to identify 9/11 remains through DNA and dental records. Science, then and now, becomes a tool not just for understanding catastrophe, but for restoring dignity to the lost. Yet there's a crucial difference. Pompeii's tragedy unfolded without warning, its citizens oblivious to the mountain's wrath until it was too late. 9/11 played out in real time on global screens, its horror amplified by modern connectivity. One disaster was whispered by the Earth, the other broadcast by satellites. Both, however, reveal humanity's fragile dance with forces beyond our control, whether the slow grind of tectonic plates or the sudden hatred of terrorists. The lesson isn't just about vulnerability, it's about resilience. Just as Pompeii's ruins became a pilgrimage site for Romans within decades, the 9/11 memorial now draws millions to reflect beside its reflecting pools, proving that grief, too, can build something sacred. Here's what these sites share beyond sorrow. They force us to confront impermanence. Walking Pompeii's streets, you see grooves worn by chariot wheels, grooves that could have been smoothed over the next year if not for the eruption. At the 9/11 Museum, a stopped clock from the wreckage displays the exact minute the towers fell. Both moments remind us that history isn't just made by wars and kings, it's the sum of countless mundane Mondays suddenly cut short. Perhaps the most haunting parallel is how both disasters spawned new sciences. Pompeii birthed modern archaeology, teaching us to read ashes like pages. 9/11 revolutionized forensic anthropology and high-rise safety codes. From tragedy comes knowledge, a silver lining etched in pain. As climate change looms, threatening to freeze coastal cities in metaphorical ash, these sites whisper a warning. Civilization is always one tremor, one spark, one instant away from becoming a museum. But they also offer hope, proof that even in ruin, we leave behind not just scars, but stories too vital to forget. Rising from the Mesopotamian plains over 4,000 years ago, the ziggurat of Ur wasn't just a temple, it was a societal blueprint in baked brick. Each of its 3 massive tiers, stacked like a colossal wedding cake, served a distinct purpose: the base for the laborers, the middle for the bureaucrats and priests, and the summit reserved for the divine. Climbing its staircases wasn't just a physical act, it was a metaphor for status, a tangible representation of who mattered and who didn't. Fast forward to the gleaming skyscrapers of today, where glass elevators whisk workers through nearly identical layers, entry-level cubicles on the lower floors, middle management in the tiered offices above, and the C-suite perched in the penthouse like modern-day deities. The materials have changed, mud brick swapped for steel, but the message remains: elevation equals power. The ziggurat's design wasn't accidental. Its steep staircases, visible only from certain angles, reinforced exclusivity. Ordinary citizens couldn't see the rituals at the top, just as today's interns rarely glimpse the boardroom's inner workings. The highest tier housed the temple to Nana, the moon god, accessible only to the elite. Compare that to Silicon Valley's open office myth, where despite the lack of walls, decision-making still happens behind closed doors on the top floor. Even the language we use echoes ancient stratification. Climbing the corporate ladder could have been lifted straight from a Babylonian scribe's tablet. Yet these structures share more than just hierarchy, they're both engines of aspiration. The ziggurat promised spiritual ascent to those who serve the gods faithfully. The modern office dangles promotions and stock options for those who hit their KPIs. Both systems thrive on the belief that upward mobility is possible, even if the climb is grueling. The ziggurat's laborers hauling bricks might have dreamed of becoming priests, just as today's gig workers fantasize about corner offices. The difference: ancient Mesopotamia never pretended the system was meritocratic. The priests were born, not made. Our glass ceilings, though subtler, often serve the same function, disguising inherited privilege as earned success. Here's where the comparison turns unsettling. The ziggurat's tiers were literally cemented in place. No one expected a bricklayer to become high priest. Modern corporations, though, sell the illusion that anyone can reach the top with enough hustle. Yet studies show socioeconomic background still predicts career trajectory more reliably than performance. The ziggurat's honesty about fixed roles feels almost refreshing next to today's performative equity. At least the Babylonians didn't plaster Team Member of the Month awards over the fact that the bricklayer's grandson would still be laying bricks. But perhaps the most telling parallel is what happens when these structures crumble. The ziggurat's ruins remind us that no hierarchy lasts forever, not even one ordained by gods. The same could be said of companies like Enron or Lehman Brothers. Their towering reputations collapsed into rubble. Both ancient and modern systems ignore the same truth. Pyramids, whether of brick or bureaucracy, are inherently unstable. The wider the base, the heavier the weight pressing down. So the next time you ride an elevator past the brass plaques of executive floors, remember Ur's shadow stretching across millennia. The names and rituals have changed, but the architecture of power, that's archaeology in action. Perched above Athens like a crown of white marble, the Acropolis wasn't just a collection of temples, it was a declaration. Every fluted column, every sculpted frieze screamed to the world, this is what democracy builds. Built in the 5th century BC, its Parthenon stood as the ultimate flex of civic pride, funded by the people to honor their patron goddess Athena, a symbol of wisdom and strategic warfare. Fast forward to Paris in 1889, where Gustave Eiffel's iron lattice tower soared over the Champ de Mars, a temporary exhibit turned permanent icon. Both structures share the same DNA. They're not just landmarks, but lightning rods for collective identity, stone and steel embodiments of what a society holds sacred. The parallels run deeper than their skyline dominance. The Acropolis was Athenian democracy's billboard, its sculptures depicting mythical battles as allegories for Greek unity against Persian invaders. Similarly, the Eiffel Tower, originally mocked as a metal asparagus, became a rallying point after surviving 2 world wars. Its lights snuffed out during Nazi occupation, then blazing back to life with the liberation. Both structures transformed from architectural feats into national therapy, physical manifestations of resilience. Even their construction methods echoed civic values. The Parthenon's labor force included freed slaves paid equal wages, while the Eiffel Tower's 300 workers, many immigrants, received pensions and health care, radical perks for the industrial age. Yet their true power lies in how they democratize wonder. The Acropolis wasn't reserved for elites. It loomed over the agora where merchants and philosophers mingled, its visibility a daily reminder that greatness belonged to the polis. The Eiffel Tower, initially deemed an eyesore by artists, was saved by the public's adoration. Today, its elevators haul millions to the summit for the price of a café crème, proving that transcendence shouldn't be gated. Even their lighting carries symbolic weight. The Parthenon's golden sheen, originally painted in vivid colors, mirrored Athena's divine glow, while the tower's nightly sparkles, added in 2003, turned Paris into an egalitarian disco. But here's the twist: both icons nearly didn't survive. The Parthenon became a Christian church, then a mosque, then an Ottoman ammunition dump before Lord Elgin's men sawed off its marbles. The tower was almost scrapped in 1909, saved only by its newfound use as a radio antenna. Their persistence reveals a universal truth: what a culture chooses to preserve speaks volumes about its evolving soul. Modern parallels abound. Debates over Confederate statues or Ukraine's Maidan protest barricades, preserved as memorials, show how public space becomes contested memory. What's most striking is how these monuments refuse to stay frozen. The Acropolis' current restoration uses titanium rods to stabilize ancient fractures, a hybrid of classical and space-age tech. The Eiffel Tower's glass-floored first floor, added in 2014, lets visitors walk on air, merging 19th-century engineering with 21st-century thrills. Both structures whisper the same challenge across centuries: greatness isn't about building something perfect, but building something alive, something that dares each generation to see itself in the scaffolding. As Athens' smog stains the Parthenon's marble and Parisian graffiti artists tag construction fences around the tower, the message is clear: real icons don't belong to the past. They're blueprints for the futures we've yet to imagine. Hidden in the dry darkness of desert caves for 2,000 years, the Dead Sea Scrolls survived conquests, empires, and the slow erosion of time, not by chance but by deliberate design. These fragile parchment fragments, tucked into clay jars and sealed away by the Essenes, weren't just religious texts. They were an ancient encryption, a way to safeguard sacred knowledge from the chaos of history. Fast forward to today's digital age, where we bury our most vital data in underground server farms, lock it behind blockchain ledgers, and encode it with algorithms so complex even quantum computers strain to crack them. The mediums have changed from parchment to pixels, but the mission remains identical. How do you make truth indestructible? Consider the parallels between those Judean desert caves and modern data vaults. The Essenes chose their hiding spots with precision: caves high enough to avoid flash floods, dry enough to prevent mold, yet accessible enough to retrieve the scrolls when the time was right. Today's digital archivists mirror this logic, storing backup drives in Arctic bunkers or abandoned mines, where stable temperatures and isolation shield them from hackers and electromagnetic pulses. Even the clay jars find their echo in the digital sarcophagi of Microsoft's Project Silica, which etches data onto quartz glass plates capable of enduring for 10,000 years. Both systems bank on the same bet: survival depends on outsmarting entropy, yet the real kinship lies in motivation. The Dead Sea Scrolls preserved threatened scriptures during Roman persecution, ensuring continuity of belief. Modern encryption does the same for democracy. Whistleblowers use Signal to evade surveillance. Activists stash evidence of war crimes in decentralized clouds, and journalists bury hard drives to protect sources. When Apple refuses to unlock iPhones for governments, or when blockchain activists archive censored news on the interplanetary file system, they're channeling the Essenes' resolve: some truths must outlast the powers that would erase them. Here's where the comparison twists. The scrolls' authors never imagined their work would surface in an era of carbon dating and multispectral imaging, tools that now reveal erased words, trace ink origins, and even detect the scribe's fingerprints. Similarly, today's encrypted data might one day face decryption technologies we can't yet fathom. The irony: both ancient and modern time capsules risk being cracked open by futures they weren't designed to anticipate. The Essenes hid texts from Roman soldiers, not AI linguists. We encrypt files against hackers, not post-quantum algorithms. Perhaps the deepest lesson lies in fragility. The Dead Sea Scrolls survived not because they were indestructible, but because they were redundant copies scattered across caves, like a prehistoric version of cloud replication. Modern data hoarders follow suit, backing up files across continents and even planning lunar servers. Yet both systems share a vulnerability. They assume someone someday will still care enough to decode them. The scrolls' Hebrew and Aramaic required generations of scholars to resuscitate their meaning, just as future civilizations might struggle to read our obsolete file formats. Preservation isn't just about saving data, it's about saving the keys to understanding it. So why does humanity keep burying its knowledge? Because whether etched in ink or silicon, the drive transcends technology. It's about defiance against time, against tyranny, against the quiet forgetting that threatens every idea. When archaeologists unearth a new fragment from Qumran, or when a cypherpunk uploads another blockchain backup, the message is the same: we refuse to let the dark win. The jars may be empty now, but the words, they're still fighting. Crete's Palace of Knossos sprawls across the hillside like a labyrinth of light, its courtyard sun-drenched, its rooms flowing into one another without corridors, walls painted with leaping dolphins and swaying lilies. This wasn't just a royal complex, it was a manifesto for how to live, built by the Minoans 3,500 years ago with an ethos startlingly modern. Why box yourself in when space can breathe? Fast forward to a 21st century loft in Copenhagen or Tokyo, where sliding glass panels replace interior walls and sunlight pours through skylights onto bare concrete floors. The connection isn't coincidental. Both eras rejected compartmentalized living in favor of fluidity, proving that some design principles are timeless. What makes Minoan architecture feel so contemporary is its rejection of oppressive grandeur. Unlike the windowless fortresses of Mycenae or Egypt's tomb-like temples, Knossos celebrated openness. Its polytheron, doors, interconnected wooden frames that could fold back to merge rooms anticipated today's movable partitions by millennia. Modern architects like Tadao Ando or John Pawson echo this philosophy, stripping homes down to essential planes and volumes where light defines boundaries instead of walls. The effect is the same. Space feels alive, mutable, shaped by human movement rather than rigid grids. Even the colors resonate. Minoan frescoes favored warm ochres and sea blues, tones now dominating Scandinavian interior catalogs and Mediterranean villas. But the parallels go deeper than aesthetics. Knossos' central courtyards weren't just architectural features, they were social hubs, places for gatherings, ceremonies, and daily commerce. Modern co-living spaces like Berlin's Alt-Zollhaus or Brooklyn's Common replicate this intentional communality, with shared kitchens and lounges encouraging interaction among residents. Both designs acknowledge a truth we're relearning after centuries of isolating suburban sprawl. Walls don't just divide space, they divide people. The Minoans knew this instinctively, arranging their palaces so that the baker's workspace bled into the potter's, each craft visible to the other, fostering a sense of collective purpose. Light was the true master builder at Knossos. Light wells pierced multiple floors, while reflective gypsum floors amplified every sunbeam, an ancient version of the light tunnels and mirrored surfaces in today's passive solar homes. Contemporary architects obsess over daylight harvesting, using software to model sun paths just as Minoan builders likely tracked solstices to angle their courtyards. The goal across millennia is identical: to trap sunlight like honey in a comb, making artificial light redundant. Even the Minoan preference for east-facing entrances, capturing morning light, finds its echo in green building standards that prize southern exposures. Yet there's a twist. Minoan openness wasn't just pragmatic, it was spiritual. Their unbroken sightlines allowed ritual processions to flow seamlessly from room to sacred room, a kinetic form of worship. Modern minimalism often lacks this sacred dimension, but traces linger in Japanese ma, the reverence for negative space, or in the way a sunlit, uncluttered room can feel almost monastic. When a Milanese designer pairs a penthouse down to raw stone and a single olive tree, or a Kyoto tea house frames emptiness as art, they're channeling the same awe the Minoans felt standing in a light-drenched courtyard. Perhaps the most telling parallel is how both eras confront clutter. The Minoans, lacking bulk furniture, stored goods in decorative pithoi jars embedded in floors, a solution both practical and beautiful, much like today's built-in cabinetry or underfloor storage. Their frescoes depicted nature, not possessions, reinforcing a connection to the living world over material accumulation. Sound familiar? It's the core tenet of Marie Kondo's decluttering movement, or the tiny house trend, where every object must justify its footprint. The Minoans didn't just build differently, they lived differently, proving that minimalism isn't a modern fad, it's a recurring human impulse when life feels overcrowded. So why does a Bronze Age palace still dictate how we shape our homes? Because Knossos whispers a truth we keep forgetting. Architecture isn't just about shelter. It's about how space makes us feel connected, unburdened, alive to possibility. The next time you slide open a room divider or pause in a patch of sunlight on a stripped oak floor, remember, you're walking in footsteps 3,000 years old through doors the Minoans first held open. In a dusty corner of a Nile Delta fort in 1799, a French soldier stumbled upon a slab of black basalt that would crack open the past like a codebreaker's dream. The Rosetta Stone, inscribed with the same decree in 3 scripts, Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphics, became the ultimate linguistic skeleton key. For centuries, Egyptian hieroglyphs had been silent, their meanings lost to time, until this unassuming rock gave scholars the tools to listen again. Fast forward to today, where your smartphone likely holds apps like Duolingo or Babbel, digital Rosetta Stones turning language barriers into bridges with every swipe. The medium's chiseled stone versus touchscreen couldn't be more different, but the mission is identical: to make the unintelligible intimate, one word at a time. Consider how the stone's trilingual text mirrors modern app design. Just as Jean-François Champollion used Greek as a known language to unlock hieroglyphs, Duolingo's courses leverage a user's native tongue to scaffold new vocabulary. The Rosetta Stone's vertical alignment of scripts, all saying the same thing, finds its parallel in split-screen translation tools like Google Lens, where pointing your camera at a menu instantly overlays English text over Japanese characters. Even the stone's physical durability speaks to today's cloud backups. While Napoleon's team made paper copies of the inscriptions before shipping the slab to London, modern apps sync progress across devices, ensuring no lesson is ever truly lost. Yet the real kinship lies in democratization. Before the Rosetta Stone, hieroglyphic decipherment was the domain of elite scholars with access to rare manuscripts. Now apps put Kurdish, Navajo, or even Klingon within reach of anyone with Wi-Fi. The stone's breakthrough wasn't just academic, it reconnected humanity to 3,000 years of pharaonic poetry, tax records, and love spells. Similarly, when a retiree in Milwaukee uses Memrise to learn Korean for her grandson's wedding, or a Syrian refugee masters German via Anki flashcards, they're not just acquiring words, they're reclaiming agency. Both the slab and the app recognize language as the ultimate passport, but here's where the comparison twists. The Rosetta Stone was a fluke of imperial bureaucracy, a Ptolemaic memo meant to be read by priests, officials, and everyday Egyptians. Today's language apps are meticulously engineered to exploit dopamine loops, turning conjugation drills into candy-colored games with streaks and leaderboards. Where Champollion spent decades hunched over papyri, modern learners expect Swahili lessons wrapped in owl mascots and celebratory dings. The stone demanded patience. Apps cater to our craving for instant gratification. Perhaps the most poignant parallel is how both tools expose power dynamics. The Rosetta Stone's Greek text, the language of Egypt's Macedonian rulers, reveals who held the pen. Modern language apps, too, reflect biases. Spanish courses outnumber indigenous languages 100 to 1, and AI voices often default to Eurocentric accents. Decoding isn't neutral, whether it's 19th century Orientalism or an algorithm prioritizing business English over rural dialects. Yet for all their flaws, both the stone and the apps share a radical promise: understanding dissolves walls. When Champollion finally shouted "G-Tines Ella Fair," upon deciphering a car touch, he didn't just solve a puzzle, he restored voices muffled for millennia. Today, every time someone stumbles through their first bonjour or xin chao, they're stepping into that same current where words don't just communicate, they commune. The Rosetta Stone sits behind glass in the British Museum now, but its spirit flickers in every notification that pings, "Time for your daily lesson." The medium changes, but the magic, the alchemy of turning noise into meaning, that's eternal. Beneath the quiet streets of Malta lies a whispering underworld, the hypogeum of Hal Saflieni, a labyrinth of chambers carved from limestone 5,000 years ago. This subterranean temple isn't just a marvel of prehistoric engineering, it's a time capsule of acoustic genius. Step into its oracle chamber, speak softly, and your voice amplifies, vibrating through the stone with an eerie, resonant clarity that chills the spine. The ancients who sculpted these halls didn't just dig graves. They composed an invisible symphony, shaping rock to manipulate sound waves with precision that rivals today's most advanced concert halls. Modern acousticians have measured the hypogeum's frequencies, stunned to find its chambers tuned to the same harmonic principles as Vienna's Musikverein or Berlin's Philharmonie. The curved walls and domed ceilings scatter sound waves evenly, eliminating dead spots, a technique mirrored in Frank Gehry's Walt Disney Concert Hall, where undulating panels diffuse music to every seat. Even the hypogeum's narrow speaking tubes, carved between chambers, function like ancient intercoms, funneling whispers across distances, just as modern theaters use hidden ducts to amplify stage whispers for balcony audiences. But here's what sets the hypogeum apart. Its creators achieved this without mathematics or measuring tools. They worked by ear, sculpting until the stone sang correctly, an intuitive mastery of resonance that modern architects now replicate with supercomputers. When the Elbphilharmonie in Hamburg fine-tuned its vineyard seating arrangement to optimize sound, engineers relied on algorithms to simulate wave patterns. The hypogeum's builders had no such tools, yet their empirical tweaks produced a space where chanting or drumming would have triggered bone-deep vibrations, blurring the line between music and mystical experience. This convergence of ancient and modern reveals a universal truth. Humans have always sought to shape sound for emotional impact. The hypogeum's chambers likely hosted rituals where reverberant frequencies induced trance states, akin to how bass drops in a concert arena today trigger collective euphoria. Nashville's Ryman Auditorium, famed for its pure acoustics, owes its magic to curved wood paneling that bounces harmonies like the hypogeum's limestone niches. Both spaces prove that architecture isn't just seen, it's felt in the ribs, the goosebumps, the involuntary catch of breath when a note hangs perfectly in the air. Yet there's a haunting difference. The hypogeum's acoustics were designed for intimacy with the divine, its echoes meant to carry prayers or prophecies into the underworld. Modern venues chase technical perfection, but rarely spiritual transcendence. Perhaps that's why artists like Björk or Dead Can Dance seek out caves and crypts to record in, craving the raw, untamed resonance our ancestors understood instinctively. When you stand in the hypogeum's darkest chamber, where a low hum persists even in silence, a natural infrasound phenomenon, you're hearing the same frequencies that pulsed through rituals millennia ago, the same vibrations that stadium engineers now pump through subwoofers to make crowds feel the music. The real lesson of the hypogeum isn't just about sound, it's about scale. 5,000 years ago, a handful of people could gather in that oracle chamber and feel the walls tremble with their voices. Today, engineers design arenas where 50,000 can share that same shiver of connection. The tools have changed, but the craving remains, to be submerged in sound, to feel it rewrite your heartbeat. As laser scans map the hypogeum's hidden contours and 3D models predict its acoustic secrets, we're not just studying history, we're rediscovering a language of vibration older than words, written not in ink but in limestone and air. Carved from volcanic basalt over 3,000 years ago, the Olmec colossal heads loom with silent authority, each one a portrait weighing up to 20 tons, their expressions frozen somewhere between defiance and serenity. These aren't just sculptures, they're ancient billboards placed strategically in ceremonial centers where they could dominate the landscape, much like Chicago's Cloud Gate, better known as the Bean, reflects and distorts the skyline for every passerby. Both the Olmec heads and modern public art serve the same primal purpose: to stop you in your tracks, to force a moment of collective recognition, and to whisper, "This place matters." The Olmec didn't just carve faces, they encoded power. Scholars believe each head represents a ruler, their distinct features, helmets, ear ornaments, even scars meticulously chiseled to broadcast identity and authority. Fast forward to Philadelphia's mural arts program, where sprawling street portraits of local heroes, teachers, activists, even neighborhood kids, turn brick walls into civic canvases. The medium shifts from stone to spray paint, but the message echoes across millennia. This is who we celebrate, this is who we are. Even the scale is a shared language. The Olmec heads tower over viewers, just as JR's massive photo installations wrap buildings from Paris to Rio, their oversized eyes demanding engagement from every angle. Yet there's a crucial difference. The Olmec heads were likely commissioned by elites to legitimize their rule, while today's murals often emerge from grassroots movements. Take the "Fearless Girl" statue facing Wall Street's Charging Bull, a corporate-funded piece that became a feminist icon, its meaning hijacked by the public. The Olmec would have understood this tension. Their heads, though symbols of control, may have also been reinterpreted by generations who encountered them long after the rulers' names were forgotten. Public art, ancient or modern, never belongs entirely to its creators. It's a conversation with the crowd. What's startling is how both eras manipulate materials to defy expectations. The Olmec transported basalt boulders from miles away without wheels or pack animals, a feat of labor that rivals the engineering behind Anish Kapoor's Cloud Gate, its seamless steel surface requiring cutting-edge metallurgy. Both works transform hard substances into something fluid, the Olmec head's rounded contours softening volcanic rock, the Bean's mercury-like surface turning steel into liquid illusion. The technical mastery serves the same goal: to make the impossible feel intimate, to turn raw material into shared spectacle. Street art's ephemerality adds another layer. While the Olmec heads endured centuries, Banksy's murals are famously painted over or auctioned off, their fleeting existence part of their potency. Yet even the heads weren't immune to time. Many were buried or mutilated, their fragments later unearthed like urban art rediscovered beneath layers of city grime. This cycle of creation and erasure reveals an uncomfortable truth. Public storytelling is always provisional, subject to the next era's priorities. The deepest parallel lies in ritual. The Olmec likely staged ceremonies around their heads, just as crowds today gather for the unveiling of a new mural or the annual lighting of Chicago's Crown Fountain, its video faces spitting water like modern-day oracles. Whether it's a 3,000-year-old stone gaze or a projection-mapped skyscraper, the magic happens when art becomes a stage for collective experience. The heads didn't just represent rulers, they hosted the community's myths, its fears, its laughter. Walk through any city today and you'll find the same alchemy at work. a graffiti tag that becomes a neighborhood talisman, a bronze statue rubbed shiny by a million hands for luck. The materials evolve, but the human need to see ourselves reflected in our surroundings, that's carved in stone. Standing sentinel at the entrance to Mycenae for over 3,000 years, the Lion Gate's massive limestone beasts aren't just decorations, they're a primal power move. Carved above the citadel's entrance around 1250 BCE, these two lionesses, or perhaps griffins, flanking a central column, broadcast an unmistakable message to anyone approaching. This place is protected by forces greater than yourself. Fast forward to today, and you'll find the same instinct pulsing through corporate logos, sports team mascots, and even national emblems, where lions, eagles, and other formidable creatures still serve as shorthand for strength, prestige, and unshakable authority. The Mycenaean lions weren't chosen at random. In the ancient Mediterranean, lions symbolized raw power and divine favor, attributes the Mycenaean kings desperately wanted associated with their stronghold. The missing heads, likely crafted from precious metals, would have glinted in the sunlight, turning the gate into a dazzling display of wealth and military might. Now picture the lion in the MGM Studio logo, its roar vibrating through movie theaters, or the British Royal Arms crowned lion, stamped on everything from passports to pint glasses. The medium shifts from stone to celluloid or embossed foil, but the psychological playbook remains unchanged. Associate your brand, your nation, your team with apex predators, and some of that ferocity rubs off. What's fascinating is how these symbols evolve yet retain their core DNA. The Mycenaean lions stand rigidly heraldic, their symmetry echoing the gate's imposing cyclopean masonry. Compare that to Ferrari's prancing horse, a logo inspired by a World War I fighter ace's emblem, now plastered on luxury cars racing down modern highways. Both designs tap into the same subconscious triggers, the Mycenaean rulers declaring, "We are the lions of this land," just as Ferrari whispers, "This machine is a stallion barely contained by asphalt." Even collegiate mascots like Princeton's Tiger or the University of Georgia's Bulldog follow the ancient template, fierce creatures embodying institutional pride, their stylized forms rendered in colors meant to rally crowds. But here's where the connection deepens. Heraldic symbols don't just represent power, they create it. The Lion Gate's placement wasn't arbitrary. It framed every visitor's first impression of Mycenae, setting the tone before they even crossed the threshold. Modern brands deploy the same strategy. Apple's bitten fruit glowing on laptops in coffee shops, Nike's swoosh stitched onto Olympians' uniforms. These aren't just logos, they're psychological gatekeepers. The Mycenaean lions guarded a physical fortress. Today's corporate mascots defend market share and mind share. When a Detroit Lions fan paints their face with leonine stripes or a Starbucks barista steams milk under a twin-tailed siren, they're participating in rituals as old as Bronze Age Greece. Yet there's a poignant contrast. The Lion Gate's beasts were one of a kind, carved for a specific time and place. Modern logos, endlessly replicated on screens and merchandise, sacrifice uniqueness for ubiquity. Walk through any airport and you'll spot a dozen eagle-adorned insignias from airlines to government agencies, each trying to outsoar the other. The Mycenaeans didn't have to worry about their lions being diluted by overuse. Their symbols stayed rooted to sacred stone. Today, heraldry's power is both amplified and diminished by globalization, recognizable everywhere, but rarely sacred anywhere. Perhaps that's why some brands now reach back to ancient techniques. Luxury watchmaker Panerai logo features a Florentine shield topped by what else? A lion, its vintage aesthetic borrowing prestige from centuries of heraldry. Even tech startups, supposedly the antithesis of old-world symbolism, often default to animal mascots, Twitter's bird, Firefox's fox, when they need to feel approachable yet resilient. The Lion Gate reminds us that symbols work best when they're both timeless and timely, rooted in universal instincts, yet tailored to a specific moment's needs. Standing before those weathered Mycenaean lions today, their details softened by millennia of wind and rain, it's hard not to wonder, what will future civilizations make of the golden arches or the Starbucks siren? Will they recognize them as the heraldic beasts of our age, guardians not of citadels but of convenience and caffeine? The stone murmurs back, symbols outlast their creators, but only if they keep meaning alive in the hearts of those who pass beneath them. Dredged from a shipwreck off the coast of Greece in 1901, the Antikythera mechanism sits in fragments green with corrosion, its gears frozen mid-turn like the innards of a clock struck by lightning. But this wasn't just any timepiece. Dating back to the 1st century BCE, this intricate bronze device could predict eclipses, track Olympic cycles, and model planetary motions with a precision that would vanish from Europe for over 1,000 years. It was, in essence, the world's first analog computer, a masterpiece of miniaturization that proves ancient engineering rivaled our own in sophistication, just with different tools. Fast forward to today's Swiss watch workshops or NASA Mars rovers, and you'll find the same mechanical ingenuity at work. The Antikythera's differential gears, previously thought to have been invented in the 16th century, allowed it to calculate celestial positions by subtracting one rotational speed from another, a principle still used in car transmissions and helicopter rotors. Its nested dials and pointers functioned like an ancient spreadsheet, crunching astronomical data through sheer kinetic choreography, much like the mechanical calculators used by engineers before the silicon chip. Even the device's compact design, fitting complex functions into a shoebox-sized case, foreshadowed modern obsession with miniaturization from smartphones to laparoscopic surgical tools. Yet the parallels go deeper than mechanics. Both the Antikythera and modern analog computers thrive on elegance, solving problems with the fewest moving parts possible. Charles Babbage's 19th century difference engine, a brass behemoth meant to calculate logarithms, echoed the Antikythera's gear-driven logic. Even today, in an age of quantum computing, analog systems persist where precision matters most. The Nord Micro modular synth, beloved by musicians for its warm, unpredictable tones, relies on analog circuits to shape sound waves organically, just as the Antikythera's gears modeled the heavens' rhythms. Both remind us that sometimes the most profound solutions aren't digital, they're tactile, turning the abstract into something you can almost touch. Here's what's truly humbling. The Antikythera's creators had no blueprints, no CD software, not even standardized measurements. They worked by trial and error, filing bronze cogs until the heavens aligned in miniature. Modern engineers at CERN or SpaceX, for all their particle accelerators and rocket algorithms, still rely on that same iterative tinkering, prototyping, testing, failing, and refining. The tools have changed, but the dance between vision and persistence hasn't. Perhaps the most poetic link lies in their shared fragility. The Antikythera spent 2 millennia dissolving in seawater, just as today's devices risk obsolescence when cloud servers shut down. Both eras face the same paradox: the more intricate the machine, the more vulnerable it is to time. Yet their legacy endures. When a programmer writes code to simulate gravitational waves, or a clockmaker crafts a tourbillon to counteract Earth's pull, they're speaking the Antikythera's language, a dialect of gears and curiosity that never goes out of style. The bronze fragments whisper a truth we're still learning. Brilliance isn't about the era you're born into, but the problems you dare to solve with the tools at hand. Rising from the Mississippi floodplains like an earthen echo of Manhattan, Cahokia's mounds once cradled a city of 20,000, a thriving metropolis 7 centuries before Columbus, where plazas pulsed with ceremony and trade routes stretched from the Great Lakes to the Gulf. This wasn't just a settlement, it was an experiment in urban living, a precursor to the very challenges that now strain our modern megacities. walk through its reconstructed wood henge, where posts aligned with solstice sunrises, and you'll glimpse a civilization that mastered celestial timekeeping yet couldn't outrun the consequences of its own explosive growth. Cahokia's urban footprint sprawled across 6 square miles, its central monk's mound towering 100 feet over thatched roof neighborhoods, a prehistoric skyscraper of packed earth requiring 14 million baskets of soil. The logistics mirror modern infrastructure projects like Dubai's Palm Islands or China's sponge cities, where reshaping terrain to human will comes at staggering cost. But here's where the comparison turns sobering. Cahokia's expansion depended on a delicate balance: fertile river bottoms for crops, forests for construction timber, and game-rich wetlands. Sound familiar? Today's Phoenix or Las Vegas juggle similar dependencies, pumping water from depleted aquifers or importing energy to sustain growth in landscapes never meant to support millions. The city's collapse whispers warnings we do well to heed. By 1350 CE, Cahokia stood abandoned, its mounds empty. Archaeologists trace the decline to a perfect storm of overharvested forests, eroded farmland, and possibly even climate shifts, an ancient parallel to Sao Paulo's water crises or Delhi's apocalypses. The Cahokians, like modern urban planners, faced a brutal equation: how to keep feeding and housing an ever-growing population without devouring the very resources that sustain them. Their answer: intensive maize farming initially boosted yields, but monocropping drained soils, much like Iowa's overworked fields rely on synthetic fertilizers today. Yet Cahokia's most haunting legacy isn't its fall, but its innovations. The city's waste management system, trash pits strategically placed beyond residential zones, anticipated modern sanitation districts. Its decentralized neighborhoods, connected by causeways but buffered by green spaces, foreshadowed today's garden city urbanism. Even its crisis responses feel eerily current. When food shortages hit, Cahokians built more ceremonial mounds, perhaps hoping rituals would bring rains, not unlike our own symbolic gestures, whether drought-tolerant lawns in California or green rooftops on corporate towers. The real lesson lies in scale. Cahokia thrived for 3 centuries, a blink compared to Rome's millennium or Istanbul's 3,000 years. Modern cities, built on concrete and steel rather than earth and timber, might assume they're immune to such collapses. But the cracks are already visible, from Venice sinking into its lagoon to Jakarta's subsidence swallowing whole neighborhoods. Cahokia's mounds, now carpeted in grass, ask us the same question haunting every urban planner's spreadsheet: how much growth is too much? The answer, then as now, isn't in the skyline's height but in the ground's patience. From the celestial clocks of Chichen Itza to the hydraulic genius of Petra, these 30 ancient sites reveal a startling truth: human ingenuity has always followed the same blueprint, no matter the century. The Great Wall's border logic echoes in Texas steel barriers, just as Nassau's fluid courtyards live on in Copenhagen's open-concept lofts. Machu Picchu's terraces whisper through Singapore's vertical farms, while the Antikythera mechanism's gears find their soulmates in Swiss watchworks. Even our modern rituals, Burning Man's solstice fervor, Wikipedia's thirst for collective knowledge, are just polished echoes of Delphi's prophecies and Alexandria's burning library. What binds these parallels across millennia isn't just craftsmanship, it's the enduring human obsessions we keep rebuilding in new materials. The need to mark time, Stonehenge's sunstones, Apple Park's solstice-aligned ring. The hunger for spectacle, Colosseum's bloodsport, stadiums' roaring crowds. The ache to commune with something greater, Göbekli Tepe's pillars, biophilic designs, living walls. These aren't coincidences, they're proof that our deepest urges outlast empires, technologies, even languages. So next time you pass a corporate plaza dotted with monoliths or catch your reflection in a skyscraper's glass facade, look closer. You might spot Delphi's shadow in a psychic's TikTok readings, or detect Cahokia's urban sprawl in your city's frantic expansion. History doesn't just repeat, it lingers, waiting for us to recognize its fingerprints on everything we build. Want to keep unraveling these threads between past and present? Hit subscribe, we're just getting started. From Rome's aqueducts to Tokyo's flood tunnels, from Olmec heads to viral street art, the conversation between ancient and modern never really ends. And who knows, the next time you walk your city's streets, you might stumble upon a brand new chapter in this endless, whispering dialogue.